Are my fights to make after UFC 305 Perth, Australia. The first fight I would make is Carlos Prates versus Jeff Neal. So Jeff Neal has a fight coming against up against RDA, and I think regardless if he wins or loses against RDA, he should be fighting Carlos Prates because that would be still a ranked fight. And Carlos Prates definitely deserves a win like a ranked opponent after his win against Li Jingliang. He's on a 7 fight KO streak. And he is 3-0 inside the UFC. He's fought 3 times this year, which is absolutely crazy. And I think he definitely deserves that ranked matchup against Jeff Neal. Most guys don't have a 7 fight win streak and like 7 fight KO streak, and I would like to see if Jeff Neal tests Carlos Prates' ground game because we really haven't seen his ground game shown too much. And Jeff Neal is a gatekeeper for the division. He's lost to Shavkat and Ian Gary, and I want to see if he's still that level. And I think he's going to beat RDA, so I think give Carlos Prates this matchup. It's going to be a really fun fight. Both of these guys are amazing boxers and fighters in general, and this would be a really entertaining fight to watch. Jeff Neal has some of the most underrated boxing in the UFC, in my opinion. He was piecing up Shavkat on the feet, and he brought Ian Gary to a split decision. So I think he definitely should get that step up in competition, and I think this would be a really fun fight to watch. The next fight I would make is Li Jingliang versus the retirement home. It's like sad to say, but Li Jingliang should retire. He's getting up there in age. He's 38 now, and he's coming off a 2-year layoff, and this is his first time ever being KO'd, and he's dealing with a lot of injuries. He's on this is a 2 fight loss streak. He had a really bad back or neck injury and he had to take 2 years off. And I just don't think he's gonna be the same again. I think he should retire. I don't want him to be keep on getting fed to these young prospects. He had to fight Hamzat Chimaev, Daniel Rodriguez, and now Carlos Prates. I do think he should retire. Just for like his health's sake, his back and neck problems, and now getting KO'd. He got dominated. He got knocked down twice. He wasn't even close to a favorite going into the fight. He had minimal success on the feet, so I think he should retire. I don't think he's at that level anymore to be competitive in the UFC. He took a 2-year break, and I really think we saw that ring rust in the fight. On to the next fight to make in the heavyweight division should be Tai Tuivasa versus Mick Parkin. Mick Parkin's undefeated fighter. He's 10-0. He's the best unranked heavyweight. He's coming off that KO win, and I think he should get that step up in competition. Tai Tuivasa is ranked number 13 now, and I think both the guys, 14 and 15, Robert Nascimento and Marcus Rodrigo de Lima are both better than Tai Tuivasa, and I don't think Tai Tuivasa should be able to fight up in the rankings again. He's ranked number 13. I say give him McParkin, give him an up and coming contender, and McParkin definitely deserves it. He's undefeated in the UFC. He's an undefeated fighter. He deserves the fight, and I think Tai does not deserve to fight up in the rankings. And I know Tai Tuivasa is a big pay-per-view pull, but I'm saying put this on the main card of a UFC event or maybe a UFC Fight Night main event or co-main event, and it sells just as well. So I think McParkin deserves a fight in the rankings, and Tai Tuivasa should definitely take a step down. He's on a 5 or 6 fight losing streak, and he's the heavyweight Tony Ferguson. And I really hope he does get back in the win column, but he doesn't deserve to fight up in the rankings. He doesn't deserve a fight in the rankings, and maybe give him a worse heavyweight prospect, but McParkin deserves the ranking that Tai Tuivasa has, so this is a fight to make. Jairzinho Rozenstruik versus Marcin Tybura should be made in the heavyweight division. This can be a fight night main event. I mean, I think Jairzinho Rozenstruik is very underrated. He should have won by unanimous decision in this fight. Whoever gave it to Tai Tuivasa should be investigated. I mean, Jairzinho Rozenstruik could be a top 5 UFC heavyweight. He's only lost to the top class of them. He lost to Alexander Volkov, Curtis Blades, Cyril Gane Francis, and Jolton Almeida. I think he definitely deserves like a good ranked fight. He shouldn't have to fight down in the rankings. I think it's crazy if they make him fight down against a guy like Derek Lewis or Alexander Romov. Both of those guys. Derek Lewis is booked for a fight. If they make him fight Alexander Romov, I think that's crazy. Or if they make him fight Marcus D. Luma or Rodrigo Nascimento, he definitely deserves someone around his ranking. And give him Marcin Tybura if he wins the fight. Give him like the loser of Cyril Gane and Alexander Volkov. I think he's definitely a great fighter. I think he's a very underrated kickboxer. He had a very long, successful kickboxing career. And then also Marcin Tybura. He's coming off that submission loss, but he's not that bad of a fighter. He beat both of these guys beat Tai Tuivasa, Marcin Tybura in a better fashion. And I think both of these guys would just stand and bang. So this would be a fun fight to watch. Both of them are decent strikers, and it's just like an NPC heavyweight main event. On to the next fight. It should be Dan Hooker versus Charles Oliveira. Battle of the Bleach Fighters. So we know that Dan Hooker is on a 3-fight win streak. He beat Gamrot, Jalen Turner, and Carlos Puelles by KO. He took a year break and now he's back fighting. I mean, it's super impressive that he beat a guy like Gamrot. I think Gamrot maybe should have got the nod, but it was a very close fight, so I'm not going to cry robbery. And Charles Oliveira versus Dan Hooker. Charles Oliveira is coming off 2 losses to Islam and Arman, which are both top contenders. And I'm pretty sure Dan Hooker is ranked number 4 or 5 right now. So it's 2 versus 4 or 5, and that's a pretty even fight. And the winner of this should get the title shot against Islam or Arman, because I don't know what's happening with Islam and his injury. But both of these guys deserve this fight, the number 1 contender fight in their division. And I feel like this would be an absolute war. Like Dan Hooker just stands and bangs Charles Oliveira. I don't think he can really get a takedown against Dan Hooker, but I feel like he could get a knockdown and then the submission like he did against Gaethje, Chandler, and Dustin Poirier. So I think this would be a very competitive fight on the feet, and then this would just be a war. Make this a main event, co-main event, number 1 contenders fight. Book this fight immediately, and if the UFC doesn't make this fight, it's an absolute travesty, because both of these guys are just absolute warriors. It's like the aura around both of them, like Charles Oliveira and Dan Hooker. Like, who would have thought this fight would be made? On to the next fight. The next fight that has to be made is Gamrot versus Benoit Saint Denis. I feel like this is a must-make fight if Benoit beats Renato Moicano, which I do believe he will beat Renato Moicano. I feel like he's better everywhere. Moicano's not that great of a wrestler, so I think Benoit Saint Denis will get the win over Moicano. And Gamrot's only lost to like those top contenders. He lost to Dan Hooker, he lost to Ben Neal, he even beat Arman Tsarukyan. So I think this would be a really fun fight to watch with the wrestling and grappling that both these guys have. My only concern for the fight would be Gamrot. So in the not in the Dustin Poirier, in the Dan Hooker fight, we really did see Gamrot just get drowned in the volume that Dan Hooker had. So we would see Dan Hooker just hurt him super bad, and then he just panic shoots for a takedown, and it has no substance behind it. So I think if Benoit Saint Denis could just drown Gamrot in that striking volume, Gamrot would shoot for a panic takedown, and Saint Denis could get a submission, because Saint Denis is a beast of a grappler. And I think this should be made as like a co-main event for a UFC Fight Night, Poland, or like even just anywhere in Europe. I think it should be in Poland though. I think they should have a Fight Night in Poland, so it should be Gamrot Saint Denis co-main, and then like a Nikito Krylov versus Jan Blachowicz main event. Yeah, but I would really like to see this fight. I think the winner could get a number 1 contenders fight, but Saint Denis will beat Renato Moicano, and then he'll beat Gamrot, and then he'll get his title shot like he deserves. But yeah, so I think Saint Denis versus Gamrot would be a really good fight to watch, and it should be made next. Kai Kara-France should get his title shot. If he does not get a title shot, the UFC just has a bias against him. They should not be giving the title shot to Brandon Royval. No one wants to see that fight again. And then Kaya Sakaro should get a main event in Japan maybe against Taira Tatsama or Brandon Moreno. I don't think Kai should just be able to come to the UFC and get a title shot right away. But if the UFC wants to do that, I'm not really on board with that. But Kai Kara-France, he's coming off. He's 1-2 in his last, but he got like liver kicked KO'd against Brandon Moreno, and then he had a split decision loss to Miro Bazzi that he won. Everyone knows that he won that fight, and now he's then he like knocked out Steve Ercik in the first round, and Steve Ercik has really good defensive and fundamental boxing. He just went toe-to-toe with Pantoja, and I definitely think he would. I think this fight would be really competitive. They fought before in their career. It was on the Ultimate Fighter like Fight of Champions when they were trying to find Demetrius Johnson an opponent because he was just running through everyone. But that was so early in Kai Kara France's like UFC career. He was mainly just a kickboxer back then. So I say make this fight maybe main event 309 or whatever card needs a main event. This would be a super good fight. Pantoja doesn't have a fight booked right now, so just you can book this fight. Um, I think Kai Kara France could definitely maybe get a KO. That would be crazy to see, but I feel like his takedown defense is some of the best in the UFC. So I think this would be a good fight to watch again because so are we going to see Pantoja versus Brandon Moreno? No, because Brandon Moreno just lost to Brandon Royval. But I don't want to see that fight again. I think Brandon Royval has to get one more win. He absolutely just got laid on by Pantoja, just wet blanketed. So this is the fight to make. Then yeah. So on to the next. Steve Ercik versus Tim Elliott. Give Steve Ercik a step down in competition. He needs it. He's ranked number 8 right now. Tim Elliott's number 10. Just let him clip farm some of the lower ranked flyweights. If he can get this win, it would be great for his career. And I think that then he can start going up in competition again. Maybe Amir Albazi fight, but I think he just needs to step down for now. Maybe get a KO against a lower ranked opponent and then go up in competition. He's on a 2-fight loss streak. It was a really close fight against Pantoja, granted, but after getting KO'd, give him a little bit of a step down in competition. It will be the right thing to do for his career. On to the next. Israel Adesanya versus Robert Whittaker or Chimaev. Whoever loses that fight should have to fight Israel Adesanya. And everyone spoke of this fight before Chimaev like started pulling out of fights and looking horrible. I think Whittaker will beat Chimaev. Chimaev barely beat Kamaru Usman on like a week notice. So I think Whittaker will get the better of him, and then we see Chimaev versus Israel Adesanya, which will be a really interesting fight to see because Israel Adesanya was defending the takedowns pretty good against Dricus until he wasn't. So I would love to see Chimaev versus Israel Adesanya. This fight has been rumored for like years and years, but it has never been made because Chimaev can't stay healthy and active. So this would be a very good fight. If Whittaker and Adesanya were to fight for a third time, again, that would be a very close fight. Whittaker and Adesanya 2 was a very close fight. So this would be the fight to make. These would be the fights to make. Whittaker or Chimaev. The loser gets Adesanya. I think I would rather see Chimaev versus Izzy because we've never seen it before, and I want to see how good Israel Adesanya's takedown defenses really is. Because Dricus is a good wrestler, but he's not that level of Chimaev. And Kamaru Usman should have drawn Chimaev, but we just didn't. The judges were kind of off in that fight, and Usman was on a 3-week notice or something crazy like that. So I think Whittaker with a full camp beats Chimaev. I want to see Chimaev, Israel Adesanya. Winner can get the title shot. And the fight that is pretty much all but announced is Dricus Du Plessis versus Sean Strickland. A very, very close first fight that they had. Dricus Du Plessis won by split decision. I think I went back and watched the fight after the UFC posted it. Dricus definitely won that fight. When Dricus and Sean Strickland fight, they both of their strategies are just to walk their opponent down. We saw Dricus walk down Izzy. We saw Sean Strickland walk down Izzy. Both of them are just like their styles are to walk down their opponent. But I feel like the reason that Dricus Du Plessis does it so much better than Sean Strickland is because Dricus has that awkward style and he's just more athletic. He's more explosive. He's faster and he's stronger. So I think that's the reason we see so much success. And Sean Strickland does not wrestle. He has good wrestling, he has good jiu-jitsu, but we never see him utilize it. So I think this would be a good fight to see. I hope it's in South Africa. Dricus deserves a fight in Africa. And Sean Strickland said he won't go to Africa, but I think Sean Strickland will end up going to Africa if he has to. This is definitely the fight to make. The UFC, Dana White said it's Strickland or Du Plessis, and I would really want to see this fight again. The first fight was so intriguing. It was a really good fight. So give Dricus his fight in South Africa. He deserves it. Give Sean Strickland his title shot. He deserves it. And those are the fights that I would make after UFC 305.